Hello, hello, and welcome to D&D in a Castle. We're here at D&D in a Castle, live from the gaming room of none other than Mark Meer, who's with me today, and we're doing our DM deep dive to find out all about Mark's campaign, about his dungeon mastering, and about his history with D&D in a Castle. So, welcome, Mark.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for dropping by the Cuthbert here at Lumley Castle.
Yes, and this is your usual gaming space.
It is, yeah.
This is your preferred room.
I do like this room, yes,
Yeah.
because for one thing, it's got good lighting in here, and my eyes are now middle-aged, so there's that. There's some places in the castle where it can be a bit more dim, and lamps have to be brought in.
Yeah. So you've been in this room. You spent a decent amount of time in this room.
Mm-hmm.
You've been to D&D in a Castle here at Lumley several times, or our Castle Grimsorrow location, as we know it.
Yes.
And you've been to the US one time last summer.
Yes, and I'll be returning to Landell's Mohican Castle this summer in July for the second round of the summer.
That's right. So that is the one space that you have left at D&D in a Castle. So there's one ticket left.
There is.
If anyone wants to play with Mark Meer at D&D in a Castle, this is your chance. Definitely you should be jumping on that, because I know your tickets always sell out quickly. And
yes.
It even was sold out.
It was.
We had somebody who had to cancel. So this is a rare opportunity.
A ticket has become available.
Has been made available. Yeah. So what are you, let's start there. What are you going to be running at that castle in the summer?
I'm actually running a variation of the very first D&D in a Castle campaign that I ever did, called Agents of the Kargat. Okay. Now, if you know Ravenloft, you will know that the Kargat is the secret police of the Lich King Azalin Rex. And you may be thinking, if you're more familiar with 5th edition, like, isn't Azalin Rex deposed? It's like, no, because this is chronologically, this is actually taking place before Azalin left the throne. So it's going a little bit into the past of the Domains of Dread, which admittedly is my favorite Dungeons and Dragons setting.
Nice. And you've run this before, but not for some time. That would have been 2019 when you ran it before at D&D in a Castle.
So the original version, yes, well, that was run in 2019. And back then, things were a little different because the castles were sort of hosted by streaming groups and whatnot. And I think the library bards actually invited me here.
Yeah,
they were sort of determining which DMs were coming. And we actually had a bit of a link between the various campaigns. So there were some actual crossover things like that. But those crossover links, of course, I had to readjust the campaign because those don't exist anymore. And furthermore, I've run it since at D&D weekends. I actually ran it at Lake Sinclair at the cabin that is owned by Mike Tiddy. So I've already run the revamped version of this, but I'm going to revamp it even further and refine and whatnot.
Yeah, because you have a little more time at D&D in a Castle than at the weekends. And you, I think, have a weekends event that's coming up that I think may also be sold out. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
According to the social media postings, yes, that one.
So that one's sold out.
That one I'm going to be doing after.
So literally, the only place you can play with Mark Meer with us is if you come to the summer D&D in a Castle.
That's right, and one ticket remaining.
One ticket remaining.
And there was 0 remaining, and now there's 1.
There were 0, and there's 1. It'll be back to 0 very quickly, I imagine. So you'll be playing that at the summer event. And what are you looking forward to about that campaign in that setting?
Well, as I said, Domains of Dread is my favorite setting, Ravenloft, and that was largely my 3rd edition experience. Was almost entirely Ravenloft centered, and I was a big fan of the Gazetteers and whatnot, and particularly of Darkon, where the majority of this campaign is set. I've always been a big fan of Azalin Rex as a villain. I like liches, and he's a good lich, and moreover, since I did the initial campaign back in 2019, I've played Azalin Rex in the official Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft stream, the Black Dice Society. So I had a player character within the group, but I also, thanks to the kindness of our DM, B. Dave Walters, I was able to play Azalin.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So I've had a little more time wearing his undead skin, and I look forward always to playing Azalin Rex. And if you're a fan of the Black Dice Society, yes, this is your chance to interact one-on-one.
Yeah. So if you want to find out about Mark Meer as Azalin Rex, go check out that series of the Black Dice Society, and find out about his lichiness. And
this I'll just state again. This is set chronologically before the events of Black Dice Society. And before the campaign setting described in the 5th edition Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft.
Okay, so sort of a little bit of a prequel.
We're drawing some of the old lore back into it.
Playing in the old lore.
And in fact, in some ways, this campaign could be seen as the origin story of the current status quo of the Domains of Dread.
Nice. Oh, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of a backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it is in Ravenloft, is it going to be a very dark campaign? Your campaigns, they always have a lot of humor. They always have a lot of high entertainment, a very theatrical type of campaign.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely what you're known for, theatricality and your voice acting background and all of that. So we know it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Is it also going to be dark? Is there a lot of horror in it? What's the kind of level of the tone you're going
will certainly be a darker campaign. I would say there would be more dark humor in it. And you're actually, if you play in this game, you're actually going to be taking on a role, as mentioned, of one of the agents of the Kargat. So you're going to be working for the bad guy when you begin. Now, you won't necessarily need to be evil, because Azalin is, of course, the king of that realm, and he's the one that keeps the dark forces of the night at bay as far as the citizenry is concerned. So even a non-evil character, shall we say, might find themselves working for this organization.
Yeah. Okay, so we want to kind of play on the dark side, but you might not have to be a bad guy.
You might not have to be, but
you can
be fun.
You want to be a bad guy. You want to be a bad guy. You definitely can do that here.
Having played this before, often we have, so we say, a mixture of alignments in the party.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's always nice.
Yeah.
That's always nice. And in terms of D&D in a Castle itself, and the games and the game structure of playing at D&D in a Castle, you've done it here a bunch of times. You've done it in the summer at the USA Castle.
Mm-hmm.
What are the games like? What's it like to play a game at D&D in a Castle?
Well, it's 24 hours of gaming, so it is, given what scheduling is like, that might be months worth of game timing in another setting. But this is very concentrated, of course. Like the old motto, which I think is still being used, is eat, sleep, and roll dice. And that is basically what you do. You have lovely meals provided for you. You have a nice room to go to. But mostly, you're going to be showing up to play this campaign. Now, I'm not in the hardcore mode, so you'll get about 8 hours of gaming with me per day. But that means your mornings will tend to be free for one-shots and miniature painting workshops and that sort of thing.
Right.
But it's going to be, it's going to be a very concentrated ball of nerdiness, let's say.
I've had people say, this is the first time I've ever played a game to completion. You actually...
There's that too, yeah.
Yeah. Will you actually finish the game?
We will. Even if we have to go late, yes. I like narrative closure.
Yeah.
So yes, that I can promise. And it's very true. Like I've lost track of the amount of campaigns that I started as a player when I was younger, and then they just sort of trailed off as became harder and harder to schedule things and people got busy. But yeah, this is the promise is that you will actually have a complete story for your character.
Yeah. And how is D&D in the Castle in the USA different or similar to doing it in the UK, since you've done both locations?
I mean, the ones here in the UK, the castles, they tend to be actual castles, historically authentic and whatnot. The castles in the US, well, let's face it, they tend to be built by rich people who are castle fans.
Yeah.
So often after they pass, those get turned into hotels. They're usually sold by the family, and that's where the origin of a lot of the castles that you see in the US. Now, I've only been to the Landell's Castle location.
Yeah.
It's great. It's because it's not an authentic historical castle, it tends a little more to the fantasy realm, which kind of really fits in well with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a historical LARP. We're a fantasy.
We are a fantasy.
We're a fantasy event. So, and that you can tell from, I think, that castle that the person who built it was a lover of fantasy, lover of fairy tales.
It's very Rivendell, I think.
It's very Rivendell. Yeah, it's got a definitely an elven kind of feel to it. In terms of your history as a dungeon master, I know we talked about this at the last time we spoke when we were at Mohican Castle last summer. But for those who haven't seen that one, or who haven't met you before, tell us a little bit how you got into Dungeons and Dragons, how you got into role playing, and how you came to be a dungeon master. What drew you to dungeon mastering?
Well, I started playing a long time ago, in the early '80s. So at the first height of Dungeons and Dragons, and I essentially became a dungeon master because I started playing with some older kids, and they essentially needed someone to play a cleric because no one wanted to play a cleric. So that was my first Dungeons and Dragons experience and playing with them, and I really enjoyed it. I love Dungeons and Dragons. Couldn't get enough. But the older kids that I was playing with, they moved on to other interests as they grew older and entered high school and whatnot, and I was younger than them. And I realized that the only way I was going to get to keep playing Dungeons and Dragons in the small town that I grew up in was to teach other people how to play and then be the forever DM. And so for a few years, that's what I did until one of my players stepped up and dungeon mastered as well. And so it was by necessity that I became a dungeon master. But it really ultimately was my first acting experience, my first improv experience, my first voice acting experience. So in some ways, you could say that it was the foundation of what I do for a living now.
Yeah, and in terms of what you do for a living now,
Mhm.
you are largely known as the voice of Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. That's
Mhm.
one of your bigger credits. You're also on the Black Dice Society as a player.
Mhm.
I think more than once. I think you've played more than one character on Black Dice
Oh,
Society.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
as mentioned, I had a player character, Brother Uriah, who
Mhm.
was again the party cleric, oddly enough. And the real treat for me was getting to play one of the NPC villains, which was Azalin Rex.
Mhm. And then you've been
Oh, and I guess also I played Ferran Zalhonen, and if you know the background of Azalin Rex, you'll know why that's significant. But yeah,
okay.
I got to
Well,
play
no
an
spoilers.
archmage and a lich and my regular character.
Cool. And then you've also done voice acting on another number of other things, as well as
Yes.
you're an established improvised
Mhm.
performer, actor, etc.
Yeah, notable among the voice stuff I've done, did a lot of the Dragon Age games and the original Baldur's Gate games. Baldur's Gate 2 was actually my very first voice work ever in video games.
Well, cool. Yeah, a
And
lot of people are playing Baldur's Gate 3, but you should go back and play Baldur's Gate 2 and listen for
find
Mark.
where
Listen
it
for
came
Mark.
from,
Yeah.
yes. And of course, the Baldur's Gate connection got strengthened when Beamdog did their Baldur's Gate Enhanced editions, in which I played a number of characters, including Baloth Baratil, or Baloth the Entertainer, the drow who likes to kidnap people and force them to fight in his gladiatorial pit in the Underdark. I should mention in my current campaign, the one that I'm running here at the castle right now, Baloth features fairly prominently.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice to have a little crossover there.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we were just talking before we came online about the players that are at the castle this time who are returning players. Is one
Mhm.
of your I just saw someone in the dining hall that I recognized as having been at your campaign in the summer.
Mhm.
You have
That
somebody
was,
that
Sean, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sean, and then you were saying you have one of Elisa's players from a previous game,
There's a lot
and
of
there's a lot of
cross-pollination.
cross pollination,
Yeah.
a lot of people coming back. So, what do you think brings people back to D&D in a Castle once they've been?
I think it's an experience that you can't really get anywhere else, this sort of a luxury
Mm,
Dungeons& and Dragons vacation. So I think you'd be hard pressed to replicate that without just going back to the event again.
right. And have you had a lot of repeat players come back to your table in particular?
Yes, actually, I've had a number of people, in fact, asking for like sequels
Oh,
to
sequel. Yeah, that would be
to
cool.
games I've done. Yes, and people who've played, one campaign will often like want to check out my other campaigns. I often do because we have fall castles around Halloween. It was
Mhm.
actually on Halloween last year, and
Yeah.
so I have a very Halloweeny campaign called Liar's Night at the Yawning Portal, which is what it sounds like, is a Liar's Night party, which is the Forgotten Realms equivalent of
Yeah.
Halloween at the infamous Yawning Portal Tavern, which is actually just on the shelf behind me over there,
Right, right.
provided by WizKids.
Are you running that at this round? You're using the yawning portal in this round,
I am using the Yawning Portal, though rather sparingly compared to
compared to one that happens
that
entirely there.
that campaign is set at the Yawning Portal. This one, I did actually, because I knew the castle had a nice Yawning Portal set provided again by WizKids. I decided that yes, if you're going to meet at a tavern, it might as well be the Yawning Portal. And so I just had an initial encounter there, and mostly it's just been decoration in the back
Well,
of my
yeah,
room.
well, this is a chance to play the epic game of D&D in a castle. Let's
You
give it
want to
some epic terrain. Let's use the stuff,
use all
right?
the toys, of
Use all the
course.
toys. Um, Coming back to your players, what do you find, having been here a number of times, what are the players like at D&D in a castle? What kind of people come to D&D in a castle?
Everyone that has ever been at my table is very engaged and certainly very invested in the game. You don't often have people just sort of like, well, I'm just going to be scrolling Facebook during the game, and because yes, of course, they're very invested in the experience and being here, and so it's really nice as a dungeon master to have a player group that's so engaged and ready to participate, because ultimately, I'm not telling them a story; we're telling a story together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the other dungeon masters as well, a lot of them have been coming for a long time. What's the
Mhm.
sort of community like in general at D&D in a castle?
Oh, as on the arrival day, it's always just like, hey, you know, it's like old home week. Everybody gets to meet up again and compare notes, and you know, obviously we've got social media, but
It's not the same as it
it's
is
not the
being in
same
person.
as seeing each other in person.
Yeah.
That said, once our campaigns actually begin, we see very little of each other.
We do.
Yeah.
There's very little. You think, oh, we'll have lots of time to hang out. There's no time to hang out.
No, there might be
The players get time to hang out, maybe, but the dungeon masters are all backstage
yes. So
fixing everything that the players.
there might be a quiet pint in the bar in the evening, but then it's like, well, I got to go do prep for the next day.
Yeah, yeah. There are an awful lot of talented dungeon masters that come and run games at D&D the Castle. Something I'm interested in hearing from the dungeon masters that come is, if you were talking to people about coming to D&D in the Castle and they were not sure who they'd want to play with, how would you advise them to sort of go about figuring out which would be their right dungeon master?
Well, let's see. I can tell you this: if you enjoy intricate puzzles and devilishly fiendishly ones, devilishly fiendish ones, then Elisa Teague would probably be
Your top choice.
your top choice for DM for sure. And everybody's got their own sort of specialty. I know that Jaden, for example, Jaden King. If you really want some emotional trauma,
Hey,
probably
hey.
go to his table or Alcuin's table, Alcuin Gersh. Yeah, everybody brings their sort of a specialty, and that's is sort of encapsulated in the DM pages on the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah. And what kind of player do you think has the best time at your table, having had a lot of players? What kind of players are the ones that are like, this is the best campaign I've ever played?
I do try to accommodate all playing styles, of course, but I'd say people who really like to get into the role play of it all. Then please, if you want to do a voice, please come do it at my table.
You enjoy that?
I do
You
enjoy
have a
that,
great
yes.
time when everybody's.
I'll do a bunch
putting
of
his best.
voices too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anything else you would like to share that you think people should know about D&D in the Castle or about your games generally?
Well, as I say, it's a real bucket list item for those of the nerdy
Mhm.
persuasion, such as myself.
Mhm.
If I hadn't been invited, it would probably be on my bucket list.
Right.
But now I get to do it again and again and again. So yeah, that's it really works out well for me.
That's great. Well, we are casting live, and we may have questions from the audience. I know
Are
it's
we
very
live?
early in North America. Wait, what?
Live?
This is being recorded.
What?
Yes, we have some questions, perhaps from people who are watching, who are
Do we? It's very
either up very early or they're in a different time zone from
very
where
early,
we're from.
very early in the morning in North America.
Yeah.
I think. Yes.
So what do we got? I'm turning to my assistant here.
Yes, so we have a number of people
Ah.
that have commented. No questions yet,
Mhm.
but we do have a bunch of comments. Very active on our chat today
Aw.
is Shane Salmi, who experienced the USA summer session of last year, saying that Mark has honed these experiences to perfection.
Ah.
And the US sessions were incredible, so memorable. Mohican Castle was an incredible host. And also saying, speaking from a former castle visitor, once you leave, you'll yearn to return. One of those paramount experiences I've ever had in my 30 plus years of role playing experience.
That's high praise.
That is nice.
Thank you.
And we also have a couple of people that are kind of blaming you, Mark, for certain situations currently in their gaming world. So we have one Jacob Clark
Mhm.
saying, because of you, Mark, my party is currently in Darkon. As one, now two players have Azalin as a warlock patron.
Oh, there you go. Well, you know, he casts a wise net, of course.
And also one Audrey Wood. I got to play Agents of the Kargat, and it was amazing, especially as a Black Dice Society fan. Audrey Wood.
Lovely. Thank you, Audrey. Appreciate it.
And and Jacob Clark once again saying, I had really hoped Mark might have returned to Baldur's Gate 3 in the story expansion.
Oh.
To Baldur's Gate. Well, of course, that one was done by Larian, and a fantastic game it is, certainly. But I'm certainly content to play that game.
Wonderful. And last but not least, Jacob Clark again saying, Shepherd!
We do definitely get a fair share of Shepherd fans at the castle.
That's true. Some of them
as
come to
well.
my table. Yeah.
As well. Yeah, some of them are at your table. Do they ever get asked about that in the games? Or
within the
castle?
game, usually not. Maybe I might sneak in a sly reference. But yes, certainly I've had people bring, for example, games or whatnot or merch to get autographed, and I'm happy to do so.
Well, you're very kind.
Well, thank you.
Justin, do you have any questions for Mark before we head out of the interview?
Well, that's a great question, I suppose. I wasn't ready for it, but I'll come up with a question right now. So, Mark, what are you most looking forward to for the conclusion of your campaign today at this castle?
Yes.
That you have maybe... You can't obviously give spoilers.
I cannot give spoilers. I will tell you that this particular campaign...
what is the campaign? Set us up.
This is actually the one I was speaking with about last time when we sat down. Aboard the Leatherback, which is sort of starts as a bit of a seafaring campaign. Ultimately, though, it resolves into gladiatorial combat aboard a fantasy cruise ship. So yeah, it's a bit more of a zany campaign.
It is a bit zany, and I know some of the elements that are zany in that
Mhm.
campaign, and I won't give any spoilers to anybody who plans to play that at the future.
But beyond the zaniness, there is a bit of a plot twist at the end, and I always look forward to seeing how my players deal with that, being thrown that curveball at the last moment. And on the whole, this group in particular that I'm playing with has been hilarious.
Oh, that's so great.
I mentioned voices earlier. One of my players, Aaron, is doing a full-on Arnold Schwarzenegger voice for his barbarian and has not broken character.
That's amazing.
Yes. So yeah, this is a very fun group to play with. So I look forward to seeing how their story resolves.
Amazing. And one final question. What for you, if you could describe, a great game of D&D, just a great game, regardless of any specific factors, but what do you think makes a great game of D&D? What for you qualifies a game as being great?
Well, I touched on it before, and collective storytelling is what Dungeons and Dragons is ultimately all about. It's give and take between the players and the DMs. It's not just the DM making offers and the players accepting them. It's the players giving offers to the DM picking those up and running with them. And maybe you end up in an entirely different place than you thought you might. So ultimately, I think it's the story. It's the story that you tell and the way that the characters' backstories weave into the greater narrative.
Great. And how does that compare to the games that you've run here? Like in terms of how much of that have you been able to achieve or witnessed?
Every time.
Yep. You've been able to have a great. That's so great. Well, I'm so excited to hear that. And thank you for joining us today, Mark. I'm going to invite you to take us out of the interview with an invitation to people who are watching to perhaps come and take that last seat in your campaign. That is July 6th to 10th in the D&D in the Castle USA event that we're holding. If you would like to invite everyone.
Well, please join me at Landal's Mohican Castle for Agents of the Kargat, a trip to the domains of dread. And Azalin Rex will be there too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everybody who's been watching today. It's been great chatting with Mark, and I will release him so he can get back to...
I got a game to run.
He's got a game to run very, very soon. If you have any questions for us or for Mark, please send them to us. You can find us at dndinacastle.com anytime. And I hope to see you at the castle soon. Take care. Thank you.